Welcome to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast for club owners, operators, and fitness professionals. Each week, host Bryan O'Rourke brings you an expert interview with a global influencer at the crossroads of fitness and technology. You gain the insights, tools, and inspiration you need to stay connected to the pulse for what matters most for your business in the age of exponential technologies.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Bryan O'Rourke, and today we have Dave Wright as our guest, the founder of the famous MYZONE, the founder of Creative Fitness Marketing, which he founded 30 years ago, about in 1996, and of course, an investor in Voyage Fitness, regional chain of Australian clubs, and a member of the board of ukactive. Dave is well known, a fantastic person who I've known for, I think, about 15 years. So we're going to visit with him and discuss a number of interesting observations about ukactive, about trends in the industry, what he sees with direct-to-consumer fitness, and his advice, his pearls of wisdom as a serial entrepreneur. Before we bring Dave on the program, though, I want to give a shout-out to the Beyond Active group for the event in New York City, which was fantastic. The panel was outstanding. The panel podcast has been released before this one, so I suggest you check it out. We had some wonderful people at that panel, and it was really well attended. I really enjoyed that. And then also a shout out to the Alloy Personal Training franchise community, keynoted at that event. It was fantastic in Alpharetta, so thanks for having me, Rick Mayo and company and Team Alloy. So it is almost October, and there'll be some more events later in the year. And of course, after the first of the year, bunch of stuff happening. So keep following me at Bryan K. O'Rourke. And if you need anything, let me know. So without further ado, let's welcome Dave Wright to the program. Well, listeners, welcome. And I told you in the introduction that you've listened to, I've got just a ton of respect for this guy, Dave Wright. And Dave, I remember meeting you first when we were on Capitol Hill when you were just starting MYZONE, and that was, 13 or 14 years ago. And, you know, I've watched your journey. You've been a dear friend. I've always enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you for making time for our audience today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Bryan. Thank you for bringing these type of educations to the world. You're a good man. I do remember that trip to Washington, D.C., where we sat down with Cornell McClellan, didn't we? The
Yes.
BT for President Obama at the time. It was pretty cool. It was a cool event, actually, wasn't it?
It really was. I got to speak there, and I really that's when you first made a big impression on me, on just the way you handled yourself and the amount of knowledge you had. So, you know, a lot of people may or may not know. Your career has spanned quite a long time. I mean, you had Creative Fitness Marketing, which you started 30 years ago. You're an investor in Voyage Fitness out of Oz, and it's a chain of 5 or 6 clubs, and you've been involved in that as investor. You're obviously very involved, as you have been, in industry associations, in particular now ukactive. And of course, without further ado, your MYZONE creation, which I remember you talking to me about that very fervently when we first met. So you've had a journey, and, you know, we were talking in the beginning, and I want to get your feedback on this. You know, Jay has stepped in now as your CEO, and we were discussing this transition of founders that go through a period of time where they step back and bring other people into an organization. Tell us about that journey and what your observations and learnings have been around that, Dave.
Yeah, look, it's I think an entrepreneur, or, you know, someone like me with full of ADHD, it's I love starting things and going here, there, and everywhere, and driving that passion forward and the likes. And then with any business, you get to a point where you push it to, you know, it's like a train. You get all the inertia behind it. You get it going. You put so much to get it going, and then after a while, you you can pass the reins over to someone else to take it to the next level. And I've done that with multiple businesses that I've had with the Voyage Fitness clubs, which the Voyage Fitness here and Creative Fitness Marketing, and now with MYZONE. So it's it's wonderful to be able to take something to a particular point and then pass it over to someone, to take it for the next part of that journey. And that it's wonderful just seeing new blood coming through, and having their leadership and support and helping them when you can, and then sort of like focusing on other things. And for me, it's basically focusing on my family. I've spent the best part of 20, 30 years driving business, traveling in the world, seeing you at airports all the way around the around the world, and I've got I've still got 4 wonderful kids. I actually tilt that way, that are probably going to be at home for the next 5 to 7 years for me. And I just wanted to smell the roses and spend time with them, and I'm blessed that I'm able to do that.
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful thing. I really identify with that. And it's not an easy thing for founders to kind of have that attitude. It's very challenging for many, and more challenging for some than others. But having worked with a lot of founders in my time, I really have a respect and understanding for when it's your baby. It's hard to just step back sometimes, right?
Yeah, I think when you building a business, and particularly if it's a business that is, the hardest thing to actually do is to build a successful business, and the second hardest thing is to exit a successful business. And that there is not easy to do, no matter what business, whether it's selling a gym and getting out of a gym and the likes. It's not necessarily the easiest to do. And you've got to sort of like get the right person on the bus to tell that story moving forward, as you well know. You bring someone in, and I struggled at first for the first 3 or 4 months. I struggled and sort of like going, okay, is this what I really want to do? And my choice would have been, stay in for 2 or 3 years, drive it for a sale, then be tied in for another 4 years. And that's 6 or 7 years of my life gone. And fortunately, I never built MYZONE for the money. I did it as sort of like as a hobby, and it just exploded to the global product it is. Well, there you go. And look, it's humbling and wonderful to hear. But I need to have the situation that people don't say MYZONE is Dave Wright, and because then I have to get tied into it, and so so it's look, I absolutely have loved every minute of the journey, and also still the majority owner of the company, and still control the board, and all that. Sure. But at the end of the day, to take that step and pass it over to someone like Jay, who's got a wealth of experience as well, and who's still young and vibrant, and still got a lot of energy, and he can drive that story forward. So it's exciting times.
Yeah, it is. Well, congratulations on that. I know I give you a lot of kudos for being able to navigate that for the good of the industry and for the good of yourself and the organization. It's the right thing to do, but it isn't easy. So look, you're involved heavily with ukactive, and I saw the National Fitness Day thing. I think that was 5 or 6 days ago, a big event. Tell us a little bit about ukactive and what you all been up to and your thoughts about it.
Yeah, so I sit on the board of ukactive, and it's the representative organization for the industry. And this is the second time I've sort of like I've done it. But it's literally trying to bring through all public, private, outdoor exercise, and as a real active group. And so we did National Fitness Day. I'm lobbying, working on that we need to move away from 1 day to a month. And I, rather than National Fitness Day, I'm a big believer of UK Be Active month. So that it's not just that shot in the arm. As you well know, you miss today's newspaper, or you miss yesterday's newspaper. You don't go back and read it today and go, oh, what did I read? You move on. And if we can have a month of Be Active, similar to what Dubai do with their 30-30. They do it Dubai 30. I'd love the world, URSA. I'd love Europe Active. I'd love ukactive to steamroll in, so that you've got Movember, you've got sober October, you've got vegan January, or sober, well, whatever it is. We should have a Be Active month, and I would propose it's in December, when our gyms are relatively quieter, and we can drive that energy and drive access into the clubs, so that people can get ready for that January. So that's the plan at the moment. But yeah, so it's watch this space on that one, Bryan, where it's rumbling in the background.
Well, I'm here to help you, because I think that's a great idea. So with what UK Active has been up to, tell me, if you don't mind, in the audience, what do you see happening in the UK market, maybe Europe, a little bit about the US, maybe, UAE or APAC? Give me some flavor of what you're seeing right now in the commercial market.
So the one thing, UK Active have a pretty strong relationship with the governments, like a very, very tight relationship. We've done various challenges. We're similar to what we did with the Physical Activity Alliance in the States, with Capitol Hill. We've done that with MPs in the UK. We've had a lot of growth of budget clubs. We had the mid-market explosion initially with Fitness First and LA Fitness. Then we had the low-cost clubs with Gym Group and Pure Gym, who have been quite aggressive. And then, of course, we've got the higher-end clubs, such as David Lloyd's and Third Space. And so there's a lot happening in the space. There's a lot of acquisitions, as you well know. There's I think a lot of clubs have sort of like recovered from, dare I say, I'll say 2020, or rather the what happened to the world in 2020. And I think the industry is now, sort of like resized. It's got back on, refocused, and each facility is starting to identify their value propositions. Got a lot of budget clubs like Basic Fit and McFit, who are continuing to expand, as you well know. And then, of course, you've got the UAE, which there's just been an explosion. The GCC, which is including Saudi Arabia, which is there's just been an explosion of high quality fitness facilities, as you've seen, and I've been traveling out there for the last 15 years, and they've and all the operators have just been really thirst for knowledge and what the world is doing, and they've got the resources and the appetite, for the market appetite, to actually drive the standards out there. And Fitness First drew that now you've got you've got the likes of Fit and Glam. You've got Warehouse. If you go into some of the latest Warehouse gyms, what Kev's got there are pretty spectacular. Gym Nation are starting to be. WellFit are doing some great stuff, and then, of course, Farhad and the team over in Saudi Arabia, and Optimal are they're just spectacular clubs. They really are, and it's exciting. It's exciting times. It really is.
It really is.
Over there. Yeah,
it really is. And you see also, having traveled a lot, I kind of find it amazing if you look back at the last 10 years and how training in hotels has changed. I mean, I go to some of these clubs or some of these hotels with these facilities inside, and they're packed. Where 5 or 6 years ago, there'd be nobody in there. And now, I mean, that's just a wild vertical, what's going on there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, look, Village Hotels in the UK are probably the leading hotel with health clubs, because you could go into their health clubs and they are they are just tip top, and what Chris Southall and Andy Logues and the team there do. They're driving the standards of a health club that's actually attached to hotels, and you're sort of like it's a really good hotel, but it's also a great health club there, and I think that that service that's being provided is actually there's certainly, and they've just recently been sold, and they've done great things and great numbers,
very well.
and fought really, really well. So I think there's been a lot of operators out there have sort of like looked at what's going on and then started to execute on it.
Yeah, I agree. So, we were, back in we're not going to use the C word, back in 2020, in that range of time, as you had referred to before, D2C, direct to consumer fitness, was all the rage, right? And we've seen really a setback in a way. You've seen Bowflex, Nautilus go out of business and Matrix picking them up on their direct consumer lines. You've seen Peloton continue to suffer with, large losses even now. There are other ones, Mirror, that got folded in. I mean, just tons of these different those things that happened. What are your observations about that segment of the business? I mean, what do you see? Is it a commoditization? What do you see?
I think human behavior. Look, we've been in this game for a long time. I used to watch. I know it sounds weird, but you used to watch the Sydney aerobics. So you'd have aerobics instructors in front of the Sydney Harbour Bridge doing Oz aerobics, and it would be streamed for people at home. You'd have the gym equipment, then you'd have the Insanity and P90X, where people were doing that at home. Yeah. But we're an industry that needs people. Right. And what we used to do and sell in our gyms is, when you show someone around your club and you sit there and go, do you realize how expensive, how much worth of equipment you have access to on your £40 a month membership? You have access to £200,000 worth of equipment. I'm throwing that number out there, for £40 a month. You can't, and I think a lot of people realize that through the lockdown, so to speak, is that they realized how expensive equipment is, singular equipment. Yeah. But and then you've got access to a multitude of this in the facility, and that's what makes the facilities work. And also it's the people as well. People want to train with other people. So did I think, I mean, obviously through MYZONE, we had a great lockdown because, I'd spent 10 years saying to operators, stay connected with your members, no matter where they train, whether indoor or outdoor. And then all of a sudden they didn't have it indoor. And that worked well. But I was always of the belief that people are going to come back to our gyms, and they need to. And as you know, Rob, who was president of Precor, that got bought from Peloton. And I'm probably spilling the beans here, but he was telling me, and you probably know the story, is that when gyms started reopening, they had the data to say, hang on a minute, people are coming back into the clubs. But you had John and the guys from Peloton who were all drinking the Kool-Aid to say, no, people are going to stay. And, and I actually met him back at CES back in 2016, who was trying to say that gyms are going to be out of business. Peloton are going to put gyms out of business. I'm like, I don't really think that they will. I think it's having something to complement that gym membership is cool. And people will always buy an exercise bike and stick it at home, but there's nothing like going into a facility where you can't go and hang out the washing halfway through a workout. So I've not been a big believer of people of that old direct to consumer thinking that it was going to change the industry. It never was, Brian, and I think we probably both realize that people want to be with other people in facilities.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
that's
think,
right.
yeah, and it's transpired that way as well.
Yeah, and consumers like myself, which I'm probably not the typical one, though. You're right. And at my home, I have dumbbells and some things, ropes and some cords, and I'll do that. Sometimes I'll run outside or cycle outside. But yeah, particularly when it comes to real strength equipment, like whether it's selectorized or whether it's plate loaded, you just can't. There's no substitute for that. I mean, what are you going to do? Put that in your house? I mean,
yeah, exactly. And then tell me one piece of equipment that can accommodate all that, and there isn't. There isn't.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's someone watching this sitting there going, I've got the Elysium or whatever, but there isn't.
Yeah.
There's not. There isn't one piece of equipment that and we've opened gyms, as you know, and the absolute minimum that you need, in selectorized or plate loaded and benches and all this, someone's not going to buy that for their backyard.
No.
And that's why I think the market will always be there. It really will. It will. In the same way, you can make a coffee at home. You can easily make a coffee at home, but people go into Starbucks or Costa or they go in there because it's their experience and the environment and all that, don't they?
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely right. Now, with respect to these trends we're touching on, Dave, and again, thank you for making some time. What are a couple of trends that you think people aren't paying attention to, or maybe they're overlooking? I mean, we've heard of things like recovery or these other kind of things that you hear about. We see Ozempic and some of the programs that people are rolling out there. So we know about some of those, and maybe you want to bring up those, but are there a couple of things that you don't hear many people talking about, like, heaven help us if it's going to be AI? We went to the metaverse, from the metaverse to AI in about a 12-month window. What are some of your thoughts?
People, isn't it funny how people forget pretty quickly about that trend, so to speak? And you might have seen, I did MYZONE did a MYZONE metaverse that didn't cost us anything, and people said, why have you done this? I'm like, well, firstly, people aren't going to train with goggles on because there's a thing called sweat, and you can't unless they solve that. It's sort of like vaporware, for want of another word. We're on there because it was a marketing play, for crying out loud.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the big thing that I results is the absolute key. I really do. And I think there's been such a hyper focus on operational efficiency, right? Which is, let's just try and make sure tech that does absolutely everything. But going back to the reason why when someone comes into our clubs, they want to be there with other people, I think we as an industry still overlook the importance of the people relationship from our instructors, really understanding the true needs of customers and what does their goals look like. And I really do think that, with my gyms, we have a very, very simple rule. It's got to be clean, safe, and friendly. And that's all. I mean, it's not overly complicated. Clean, if there's things on the floor, pick it up. Safe, if someone's doing a lat pull down wrong, then it's your responsibility to help them get their technique right. And then friendly. Brian, people have asked me about, all the tech that you've got and all the information you've got, and it means nothing if you can't say hello and goodbye to someone when they walk in your facility. Now you've got the tech there. You've got the tech there that you swipe your, and this is what I don't think our industry still gets. I really don't think they get. I go to a high-end hotel, and and I'm using an example, say Grantley Hall in the UK. And when you get to the entrance of the gates, they say, yep, who it is, yep, here, swipe your card. This is, not swipe your card, let you know this is who you are. By the time you get to the entrance, welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Wright, welcome back, and all this. Now, I know that the person at the entrance has already said, we've got Mr. and Mrs. Wright coming down the driveway now, right? Quick, bring up Mr. and Mrs. Wright. Oh, they've stayed here a few times. Welcome back. I know that they've used that information. I don't care, right? Because I don't care, because they've used it and they've treated me. What drives me crazy is when people have the information and do nothing with it. So I've swiped my card, I've walked into my gym, and they've got my name and my picture on the door, and they still can't go, welcome, Dave, or goodbye, Dave.
True.
And it's the smallest things that I think that our industry are missing, because if we can create that culture, and now, and I'm going to say that because I've been into a lot of gyms that just miss that part. On the flip side, I've just got back from Australia, had a month over in Australia, and I spent time with my little brother who runs all the gyms, the Voyage Fitness gyms in Australia. And, I would say to anyone, just literally go and sit in the front, just sit in the reception of that gym. And there is not one person that walks in or out of those gyms without being shouted at from, even if someone's, hoovering up or vacuuming up on the floor, and, someone swipes in, oh, Mary, how are you? Welcome. Oh, Johnny's here. Get on you. No matter what they're doing. And it builds that culture so that people, now, not everyone necessarily wants someone, dare I say, snooping over them when they're working. Some people just go, all right, I know what I'm doing. But you've got to have that. Right. You've got to have that rapport to be able to build with them. And I would argue, and I, given all the tech that we've got out there, I would argue, and I would say to any operators out there, say to your staff, point to someone in the gym and say, tell me something about that person, on why they're training, what they want to achieve. Tell me something about it that I wouldn't know unless I've engaged in a conversation with them. Simple. Yep. I mean, it's so simple. But it's not a matter of his name's Bryan and he comes here 3 days a week. No, that's the simple. Yeah. Tell me about Bryan. Why is he training and all this? And I would say to in our gyms and all this, we sit there and go, okay, tell me about that person there. Oh, that's Mary. She actually she trains because her husband's away during the week, so he trains whatever. And this is the goals. That there is a simple thing. And there's a lot of tech that can provide the information. It can provide the information. But if it's provided that information, then from there, you've got to be able to act on it. So I think that, Bryan, is the Elysium out there that our industry just no matter, and I'm talking premium gyms, I'm talking budget gyms, I'm talking standard gyms.
All of them.
All of them. Most of them, sorry, for those, the caveat there, most of them miss the mark.
Yeah, no, I think you're so right. It's a great example of great entrepreneurs who they focus on execution. And so this is a great example of execution, because, you can get lost in the shiny new thing and the latest tech, but if you don't have a key understanding of the fundamentals, it doesn't matter, right? You have to execute on the basics, right? So
ABC, it's just it's the basics. Get that across the line. Don't try and run before you walk. And as an industry, we're trying to sort of like do a bit too much and forgetting forgetting the core and the likes. And I'm always dubious about the new trends that are coming in, and. And I'm going to probably say something controversial here. My worry about a lot of these new trends. Who's providing these new trends? Is this suppliers or vendors trying to flog an ice bath or trying to flog a relaxation chair because you must need relaxation? Right. I mean, we've got a world that doesn't achieve the World Health Guidelines, and we're now trying to throw more people to relax in the gyms. No, we need to get them in and sweating and working and then going home, and the likes. But that's always my, and there's suppliers out there. There's some suppliers out there that thought it was a good idea that, we have these cardio pieces in a circle staring at each other. And you're sitting there going, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that you're going to do this? And so that is another concern I suppose I do have is who is driving these new trends and what's the motive behind? What are they flogging, basically?
Sure. No, I understand. And, relating to that, I think it's who's the best at execution, because generally those are your most successful, operators. And when you really look at that, I think you kind of can discern what's important and what might not be so important, right? I agree with that. Great insight. What's your sentiment about, kind of going back to the old Fitness First days? What is your sentiment about cross global competition as we're seeing Pure Gym bidding as a stalking horse bidder for Blink? We know that Planet is gone into Spain and Europe and Australia. We know that, other players are looking at cross-border. We saw McFit and RSG do the Golds thing. I mean, other things. Do you see that increasing, or do you see that kind of a status quo, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think, when you've got so much private equity that are backing a lot of these companies, they've got to grow. They've got to grow, so the only again, I started the same. In the 90s, you had both LA Fitness and Fitness First, who raised a ton of money, and it was grow at all costs. It was grow at all costs, and I think that what's happened in regards to the private equity that's back there, they're going, look, okay, well, if we can't get any growth about our existing market, let's go and try and drive that globally. I would happily be proven wrong. I've yet to see a global brand in the industry ever, because you say Planet Fitness there might huge, or Lifetime Fitness. You say that to a consumer in the UK would have no idea. That's right. That's right. And there's no one's really conquered that, because it would be hard to conquer it. You had Virgin to a lesser extent because they had the Virgin Atlantic brand. You had Easy Gym, even though they had 8 or 9 sites, they had the EasyJet brand. But apart from that, there hasn't been really anyone. Of course, Anytime Fitness have got 5,500. They've got quite a few facilities out there,
international,
international and the likes. But still, it's it's still considered a local brand, so to speak.
Yes. No, absolutely true, and I agree with your observations. So again, we appreciate your time. I have one really, I think, interesting question that the audience, I think, would appreciate. So you've been an serial entrepreneur. You've done a lot of things in the space, been quite accomplished. And there are other people in our world of entrepreneurialism. When you started your marketing firm back in '96, and I started my first firm in '92 or '3. Entrepreneur wasn't even a term that anybody used. Remember that? But today, what are a couple pearls of wisdom or advice you would give to fitness entrepreneurs today based on your track record?
Look, I think be careful who you take money from. I think that's the one thing. Don't take money unless you really need it. I mean, that's one thing to do. If you are thinking of private equity or money raised, there's a fabulous book called Founder versus Investor. it is a terrific book, and it's by Elizabeth Selman. I've just had that up there.
Well, thank you. Founder versus investor. We'll put it in the show notes with a link for the audience.
It is a fabulous book, and it's got both a founder and a private equity person talking about the process from different perspectives. That's absolutely, but I think the big thing is back yourself. Ask as many questions. Research. You can't research enough. You can't ask enough questions, and you'd be surprised. Before I even launched MYZONE, I traveled the world and spent a lot of time. And I popped up and saw Chuck and Dave in Minnesota. I saw Joe Cirilli. I traveled around the world and just basically said, "Hey, look, I've got this idea." It was my own market research and being in the industry for so many years. And that there is, being not, old enough, young enough, and dumb enough to know that you can always improve, but actually asking the questions. And you've got to have, as an entrepreneur, you've got to have a set. I can't imagine the amount of people that told me that MYZONE wouldn't work. But it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And it's quite funny, those people who some of them are avid MYZONE users now. But there's a balance between taking advice and going on your path, and trying to back your convictions, but also taking advice from sound advice, and being challenged. And I've always been open to be challenged. I really have, from staff, from my wife of 27 years, and now my bloody children as well. But I'm encouraged to, if you disagree or anything, don't sit there on your hands. Speak up and ask those questions. That's the one thing that I would probably say, and go forth and conquer and drive it, and sense check it yourself, but don't be put off.
Yep, that's good advice, Dave. I really appreciate you making time, my friend. Every time I talk to you, I got to spend time with you at Europe Active. I've got to spend time with you here and there all over the world, and you're always such a gracious man with your time and insights. And I know the audience really appreciates hearing your perspective. Much respect and thanks to you for your time today.
Mate, Bryan, I love what I love what you're doing, and sending that information and education out to the world, my friend. It's, we're honored to have people like you in our industry, because you're at the cutting edge there, my friend. So keep that up.
All right, sir. I appreciate that time. We're going to see you on the backside, and look forward to publishing this for everybody to enjoy.
Happy days, everybody.
All right, brother. Take care.
Hello, listeners. This is Bryan O'Rourke, and thanks so much for listening to the Fitness Plus Technology Podcast. The podcast is made possible by the Fitness Industry Technology Council, a consortium of global brands working together to enhance the adoption of technologies in the fitness space. Our company, Videri Ventures, which is invested in Vertimax, Montezuma, Gold's Gym, Houston, Texas, and Fitness 24/7 Thailand, also underwrites the podcast, along with our service companies, Integris Advisors, Moon Mission Media, and others. Please feel free to share this podcast with your colleagues. And if I can be of any assistance to you, don't hesitate to reach out, bryanko'rourke@gmail.com, or find me on any of the major social networks. Have a great day, and thanks for listening.